Retirement is supposed to mean rest. For men like me, it's meant to be the soft landing after decades of grinding gears, of giving your body to labor and your mind to silence. It should have been peace, not applause, no, but a kind of quiet nod from the world that you've done your part, that you're allowed at last to sit. But in this house, my stillness became a threat, my presence a burden. I noticed it first in the way Linda stopped waiting for me to speak. I'd start a sentence, and halfway through she'd turn her head, already somewhere else. Not out of cruelty, worse, out of boredom. No malice, just indifference served cold and unflinching, as if her patience had expired the day I stopped bringing in paychecks. Then came the boys, grown men in their 30s, but still orbiting her like sun-starved plants. Ben and Peter, her sons from her first marriage. Always dropping by, always watching sports too loud, eating too fast, speaking too freely. They'd taken my recliner without asking, reprogrammed the thermostat, called the backyard Mom's garden, as if I hadn't shoveled its bones into place with my own hands 10 summers ago. I wasn't a stepfather to them. I was a background fixture, a shadow with a pension. They didn't hate me. That might have at least meant I mattered. No, they tolerated me. That's more poisonous, more permanent. Every week, they spoke of me as though I wasn't in the room. He just sits there now. What's he even contributing? Mom, you could really use the space, for when the grandkids visit. Little comments, little cuts, death by implication. It wasn't always this way. When I first met Linda, she was steel wrapped in softness. Her voice soothed, but her eyes held fire. I admired that. We were both older when we married, second marriage for her, first for me, and maybe that's why I tried so hard to make it work. I wanted to earn my place even if I'd arrived late to the script. I poured myself into her home like water into a cracked vase, fixed what was broken, paid off what her ex-husband had left behind, took 2 boys already halfway grown, and gave them something like stability. Not fatherhood, no, they never gave me that word, but I was there, at the graduations, at the ER visits, at the DMV when Ben failed his driving test twice and needed someone who wouldn't laugh. I thought presence was enough. It wasn't. Respect, it turns out, has a price. And once I stopped paying, they stopped pretending. After I retired, I was home more. And with that, the shift began, quiet at first. Questions phrased like jokes. Still in your robe, Bob? Ben would smirk. Peter once said, not even looking at me. I read this thing online, said men without hobbies after retirement usually fade quick. Wild, huh? Linda laughed at that one. Sometimes I would try to join the conversation. Offer something from my life. A memory. A joke. A fact I'd read. The room would go silent. Not in reverence, but in that thick pause people give when a stranger speaks out of turn. They'd wait for Linda to move on, for the familiar rhythm to resume. And it always did. Without me. Even the dog, Sadie, Linda's mutt from before our marriage, had learned to follow others around the house instead of me. She used to curl beneath my desk. Now she only came when called. I told myself it was a phase, adjustment, that maybe I just needed to re-earn my place. Foolish, isn't it? That even in your own home, after decades of service, you still believe you need to prove something. But I kept trying. I trimmed the hedges. I repaired the sagging deck steps. I cooked most nights. Chicken and rice. Pork shoulder. Baked ziti. The kind of meals that take 4 hours and go cold in 10 minutes. Nobody said thank you. Not even Linda. They spoke about me as if I weren't there. And eventually I stopped being there. Inside, I started walking longer. First around the block, then 2-3 miles. I'd sit in the park some afternoons, watching pigeons fight over scraps and old men play chess with no clocks. No urgency. I'd bring bread, not to eat, to scatter. Something in that simple act felt honest. More honest than the house I'd returned to. I kept a journal, just a small one, spiral-bound. Nothing poetic, just records of what was said and done. A ledger of moments. It helped me see the pattern. Here's an entry. Wednesday. Peter called me the ghost in the chair. Said it like a joke. Linda didn't laugh, but she didn't tell him to stop either. Another Sunday, Ben changed the thermostat, said I was hoarding heat. Linda told him not to argue with me, but said it smiling, like I was the one being unreasonable. And then, Monday, heard Linda on the phone with her sister, said, he's getting slower. I don't think he realizes how much we're all adjusting for him. Her sister didn't say anything, just made a noise, but Linda kept talking. Then came the night that broke it. We sat around the dinner table. Chicken I had grilled, wine I had paid for, plates I had scrubbed by hand because the dishwasher they never fixed still rattled like an old lung. Ben set his fork down neatly, wiped his mouth with a cloth napkin mine embroidered, one of the last things I still recognized in this house. He looked me in the eye. Robert, he said, we've been talking, and we think it might be time to consider a home. I blinked. A home? You know, Peter added, not even pretending to sugarcoat it. A place with care, structure, people your age. They said it like it was kindness, like exile was something to be grateful for. And Linda, my wife, my partner of 22 years, she nodded along. Not hesitant, not ashamed, just resigned. I found a few places near Dublin, she said. Not too far. They have amenities. A lot of people say the transition is easier than expected. The transition. She said it like it was a rite of passage, like it was something natural. I was being upgraded out of their lives. Quietly, efficiently, as if I'd agreed already. They had decided. They had talked behind my back, weighed my worth, and found it lacking. Not even a fight. No raised voices. Just administrative betrayal. I looked at the three of them, her soft smile, their calm cruelty. And in that moment, I understood something I'd refused to see for too long. They didn't love me. They didn't need me. They merely tolerated the cost of me, until the cost outweighed the comfort. I nodded. Quietly. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't ask why. Didn't explain myself. That would have been a performance for people who cared. Instead, I passed the potatoes. I smiled as if I agreed. I played the part of the old man accepting the end. Inside, I was already gone. The next morning, I rose early. Earlier than usual. I folded the paper, tucked it under my arm, and walked down to the bench by the post office. Sat for an hour. Watched people who didn't know me. Watched them live. And when I stood to leave, I felt no heaviness. Only clarity. 3 days later, I was gone. But not before leaving the lights on. Not before unplugging the very wires they thought ran themselves. Not before letting the bill come due. I made no announcements. No grand gestures. I didn't pack in front of them. Didn't slam drawers or suitcases. Didn't raise my voice even once. That would have given them the stage. That would have told them I still cared what they thought of me. Instead, I began to erase myself. The day after that dinner, I walked the perimeter of the house. Slowly, quietly, like a man surveying property one last time before signing it away. The boards on the porch I had nailed in '06. The maple tree I planted with Linda before her knees began to ache. The sun-faded shed that still smelled faintly of gasoline and cedar. My fingerprints were on everything, but none of it was mine anymore. Ownership means nothing when respect is dead. I spent the morning at the county clerk's office. The woman behind the desk wore tired eyes and nail polish flaking off in little red moons. She processed the paperwork without small talk. I signed the document to initiate the sale of the property. Our house in Dublin, the one that was mine on paper, though never in feeling. "Do you have a buyer lined up already?" she asked. I smiled politely. Yes, I didn't. But a house sells fast in a quiet suburb when the lawn is green and the taxes are paid. And I had paid every tax, every water bill, every trash removal fee for 22 years. There were no liens, no debts, just walls and floors and a roof I was done protecting. I closed our joint checking account next. The teller asked if I wanted to transfer funds. I said no. I opened a new account that afternoon in a separate bank under my full legal name. No joint access, no beneficiaries, no trace. I withdrew $2,000 in cash. Not because I needed it, but because I liked the weight of it in my coat pocket. It reminded me that I was still real, still solid. The next day, I changed the mailing address on every account I owned. Social Security, pension, investment funds, car insurance. I redirected all correspondence to a P.O. box 2 counties over. I removed Linda's name from all legal authorizations, medical, financial, estate. By noon, she no longer existed in my paper life. By evening, I no longer existed in her real one. She didn't notice. That night, Ben came over again. He brought pizza. I didn't ask for a slice. He sat on my recliner, legs sprawled, mouth open mid-bite, and began talking about the nursing homes he'd researched. There's one in Gahanna with a koi pond. I know how you like fish. Peter laughed. We should take him next weekend. Let him walk around the grounds. See how it feels. Linda nodded. I called them. They said they have a spot opening in March. I said nothing. Just watched the TV play a silent loop of local weather. 75 and sunny tomorrow. No clouds in sight. They talked like I was already gone. I suppose in some way I was. The third morning, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror for a long time. I studied my face. Not because I was vain, but because it was the one thing in this house still mine. Lines around the eyes. Skin sagging around the jaw. A hint of yellow in the whites that hadn't been there 5 years ago. I didn't look old. I looked erased. I packed a small bag. Not enough to draw attention. Just 2 pairs of pants, some undershirts, socks, shaving cream, my toothbrush. The important papers I had already moved to a lockbox in the city. The rest I left behind. Let them paw through it later like vultures confused by bones. I left Linda a note on the nightstand. 1 sentence. Not for drama, just clarity. You made your decision. I'm making mine. I did not sign it. Then I left the house. Not stormed. Not fled. Left. I stayed at a modest extended stay off Route 33. Beige walls. Thin towels. A window that opened halfway and stuck. It was perfect. Nobody asked questions. Nobody called me Dad. Nobody suggested I sit quietly while they planned my removal. At the end of the week, the first letter arrived at the house. I know because I had the delivery confirmation set to ping my phone. It was from the title company. A formal notice that the property sale was underway. I imagined Linda opening it in the kitchen. The same kitchen I installed cabinets in with my own hands while she picked out knobs. The same kitchen where she calmly told her sons I was ready for the transition. I imagine her brow furrowed, her reading it twice, but I don't imagine her crying. Linda doesn't cry, not for things that don't pay her back. 2 days later, the bank froze the joint account. She tried to log in and found nothing there. No savings, no overdraft protection, just an error message and a number to call. She didn't call me, she called the bank. They confirmed everything was legal, that my name had sole ownership, that the funds had been removed. I don't know what she said next. I only know she didn't have access to the number I gave them. She was just another stranger asking for a balance that wasn't hers. Peter called me once. Just once. From a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring. No voicemail. No text. Just a missed call on a screen that stayed dark afterward. Ben never called at all. Maybe they thought I was bluffing, that I'd come back with a bag of guilt and a signed check. But I wasn't bluffing. I was silent. And silence, in a family like this, is louder than screaming. More mail came. Notices. Confirmations. Letters with blue ink and small print. They knew by now. The house was sold. The accounts were gone. The foundation had cracked. And they were standing on air. Linda sent me 1 letter. Handwritten. Cream-colored envelope. My name in cursive. I opened it in the motel room with the tiny sink and humming refrigerator. Inside, 3 sentences. I don't understand why you're doing this. The boys meant no harm. We were only thinking of what's best. I read it once. Then again. I folded it. Set it on the bedside table. Let it sit there like a dead bird someone left on my porch. She didn't ask me where I was. She didn't apologize. She just wanted the gears to keep turning. That's what I was, in the end, a gear. A lever. a silent machine they could operate when it suited them. But I had stopped turning. And now the whole thing was seizing. No rage, no vengeance, just absence. The kind of absence that leaves a shape behind, the kind you can't vacuum out or clean with bleach. The kind that echoes when you walk past the empty chair. By the end of the week, the papers finalized. The house, my house, was no longer theirs to live in. The utilities switched. The tax statements redirected. Even the dog's vet records changed address. I imagine the moment it sank in. The sudden understanding that the man they dismissed was the pillar they leaned against. That removing me wasn't like pruning a dead branch. It was cutting down the beam holding up the roof. And now I sleep. Not well, not deeply, but without grinding my teeth. The motel mattress is lumpy. The room smells faintly of someone else's deodorant. But the quiet is honest. The air, clean. No whispering sons. No glances passed like verdicts. No wife smiling as my presence is debated like a broken appliance. Just me. Just silence. Just peace. The kind you only find when the noise is behind you and the door is locked from the inside. They say silence isn't an answer. But it is. It's the only one left when words have rotted. When you've begged with your hands, not your voice. Fed them, paid for them, bled for them. And they still look through you like sunlight through dust. So I gave them silence. And silence did what years of presence couldn't. It taught them what I really was. The letters began to arrive in waves, like flood warnings, each one carrying the sound of distant walls cracking. The first came from the title company, a standard notice, plain language. The closing date for the house had been finalized. Buyer approved. Funds in escrow. Sale binding. Linda would have opened it in the kitchen drawer she still called hers. The one where she kept takeout menus and coupons she never used. She would have read my name on the letterhead and thought at first it was another bill. Until it hit her. The house wasn't hers. It never had been. It was mine. Bought in my name. Paid off with my overtime. Maintained by my hands. Right down to the last winter I spent sealing the basement myself while Peter stood above me with a cup of coffee and no offer to help. Her second envelope would have been from the county. Property reassignment. Transfer of ownership. Tax reassessment notice. Then the bank. Confirmation of account closure. Denial of access to funds she used for groceries, for utilities, for the sons who still slept under that roof with their shoes on the couch and their futures in someone else's wallet. I picture her face. Not twisted in panic, but in confusion. Because Linda doesn't panic. She calculates. Even betrayal, for her, must have a reason. Peter was the first to call. He tried once from his cell, I ignored it. Then he left a voicemail, the kind where the voice tries too hard to sound calm. Hey Robert, listen. I think there's been some kind of error with the house paperwork. Mom's a little... Yeah, we just want to clear it up, okay? Give me a call. He didn't call me Dad. He never had. Not once. So I didn't call him back. That weekend, Ben tried a different approach. He emailed. Subject line, urgent house issue. I read the first line. We were under the impression, and closed it. They weren't asking. They were stalling. Still convinced this was a misunderstanding. That the man they tried to warehouse would come crawling back to explain himself like a clerk who made a mistake on their order. They were wrong. I watched from a distance, not literally. I didn't follow them. I didn't need to. People like Ben and Peter make noise when things go wrong. They have never suffered quietly. Peter posted on social media, something vague about betrayal from those closest to you, and learning who really has your back. The comments filled with sympathy from people who had only seen the family Christmas card version of us. Linda didn't post, but I know she made the calls. To her sister, probably. To the lawyer who drafted our will 8 years ago. To the bank once more. But none of them could undo what had already been sealed. I had removed them not out of rage, but out of clarity. They had tried to bury me before I was dead. So I made myself invisible. And now the ghost had taken the ground with him. They didn't come to the motel. Didn't knock on my door. Maybe they didn't know where I was. Or maybe they did and couldn't bring themselves to cross the distance. It didn't matter. What mattered was the silence that followed. It lasted a week, then 10 days, and then came the crack. Ben again. He arrived at the motel around noon on a Tuesday. I saw him through the curtain. His car too clean for a man with no job, his shoes too white for someone who pretended to work in construction. He didn't knock right away, just stood outside the door, hands on hips, then arms crossed, then hands in pockets, waiting, as if I owed him the first move. I didn't. Eventually, he knocked. 3 times. I didn't answer. He stood there for 2 full minutes. I counted them by breath. Then he left. A letter slid under the door half an hour later. I didn't open it, because I already knew what it would say. Regret disguised as reason. Justification with a cherry of remorse on top. I was just trying to help Mom. We didn't mean to make you feel. You didn't have to go this far. Far? No, Ben. You went far. You sat across from me at my table and told me, calmly, that my time was up, that my years had expired, that a man with no job, no place, no purpose should be moved to the side, like a chair that no longer matched the decor. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't call me names. You just made arrangements. So I did the same. Peter called again the next day. His message was shorter this time. I don't know what you're doing, Robert, but this isn't right. You're hurting Mom. That word again. Mom. Never Dad. Not even stepdad. Just Robert. Placeholder. A legal inconvenience. Hurting her? No. She hurt herself when she nodded along with the plan to exile the man who paid her heating bill, fixed her gutters, and signed her health insurance. She stood beside them, her grown sons, as they weighed my worth and found it wanting. She let them use my name like a keycard, swipe access to a life they didn't build. And when it no longer scanned, they blamed me for changing the lock. By the end of the month, the closing went through. The house was sold. A family from out of state bought it. Young couple, 2 kids, no baggage. They paid cash. I saw the listing before it disappeared. The realtor changed the language, called it well-maintained and move-in ready. Funny, they didn't mention the blood under the tiles, or the man who built the steps they walked on. After the sale, another letter arrived. Linda again. Typed this time. I want to understand. We can fix this. The boys were wrong, yes, but you didn't even talk to me. I read it 3 times. Then I tore it in half. Because the truth is, she never talked to me either. Not once in all those quiet betrayals. She never pulled me aside. Never said, Robert, they're going too far. Never said, I won't let them push you out. She sat there, smiling, discussing prices. And now that the cost has come due, she wants a refund? No, that's not how this works. That's not how respect works. You don't spit in a man's hand while taking his money and expect him to stay. In the second week of March, I heard from a mutual friend, Roger, from the hardware store. He ran into Peter at the grocery store. Said he looked thin, tired. They're moving, he said. Linda's staying with her sister for now. The boys? Still figuring things out. Good. Let them figure it out. Let them sit with the silence they once gave me. Let them wonder what went wrong, who pushed first, who refused to pull back. Let them taste the cold flavor of absence. Because I was never trying to hurt them. I was only proving a point. That the man they called useless was the one holding up the roof. That the man they called a burden was the one who carried them further than their own father ever did. That the man they dismissed was, in the end, the only one who ever had the power to disappear. And now they know. The motel room is quiet again. No more knocks. No new letters. Just the hum of the fridge, the soft clink of the AC unit sputtering in the window, and the occasional creak of a truck in the parking lot outside. I've started sleeping with the curtains half open. I like the way the light from the gas station across the street leaks in. Just enough to remind me I'm still here. Still standing. Some nights I wake before dawn and sit in the plastic chair by the window. Coffee in hand. Pen in the other. I write nothing. I just hold it. Like I might finally put a name to the feeling that's taken root inside me. Not grief. Not guilt. Not even anger anymore. just truth. I gave my silence. They answered with confusion. Then came the pleading. Then the blame. But never, not once, did they offer the one thing I needed. Recognition. They wanted the money back. The house back. The support system back. But not the man. Not the stepfather who had walked with them through their teenage wreckage, their unpaid debts, their broken leases and bruised egos. Not the man who showed up when their biological father vanished like smoke. Not me. They wanted the scaffolding, not the builder. And once the scaffolding stepped away, the building began to lean. Just a little at first, then more, until it cracked. I know Linda has moved in with her sister. I know Ben's car was repossessed. I saw the notice online, posted by the same dealership I co-signed for back in 2018. I know Peter's been sleeping on someone's couch in Reynoldsburg. I don't know whose. I don't care. They've scattered, like marbles dropped from a table. No one ever expects the floor to vanish. But that's what I was. The floor beneath their lives. The thing they walked on without thanks, without thought. And when I withdrew, they fell. Linda wrote one more time. A longer letter. 5 pages. Double-sided. Her handwriting has changed. Sloppier. Less confident. Maybe her hands shake now. Maybe she wrote it all at once. In one of those early mornings when the guilt floods in before pride can dam it up. She said she was sorry. She said she let the boys lead too much. She said she should have stood up for me when it mattered. That part made me laugh. Not loud. Just one of those short, sharp exhales that comes from the ribs. When it mattered. It always mattered. From the first time Peter mocked my hands for shaking while carving the turkey. From the first time Ben corrected me in front of company about the real story behind his graduation speech. From the first time she looked down at her plate instead of at her son when he called me just the man who lives here. It always mattered. But I didn't push. I endured. Because that's what I was taught. That real men shoulder the weight. That dignity means not demanding thanks. That love, real love, is silent. I was wrong. Love that is never returned is not love. It is labor. And labor without respect is slavery. That's what I lived. For 22 years. A quiet servitude dressed up as family. And when I finally stopped, when I stepped back and let them feel the absence, they called it cruelty. I haven't answered Linda's letter. I won't. Not because I don't hear her, but because she only found her voice after the money vanished. Regret that arrives with foreclosure notices is not the kind that deserves a reply. Let them sit in the silence a little longer. Let them learn what it means to be erased. I've begged *N looking at smaller places. Not motels. Not apartments. Cabin, maybe. Something simple. Something mine. There's a listing in Logan I've driven past twice now. 1 bedroom, 1 bath. A porch just wide enough for a chair, and a dog I haven't adopted yet. The realtor asked if I had family in the area. I said no. She smiled like that was a sad thing. But it isn't. Family is not blood. Not marriage. Not even time. Family is presence. Respect. Recognition. And once those are gone, so is the bond. I don't carry rage anymore. I carry clarity. That's harder. Sharper. But it cuts only in the right direction. And in that clarity, I've learned something simple. You cannot make people value what they've already priced for sale. My worth was discussed at a dinner table I paid for. And now the people who sat there eat off borrowed plates. They're not evil. They're not villains. They're just selfish. And selfish people don't think they're burning the house down. Not while the fire still keeps them warm. I was the warmth. And now I am gone. I heard that Peter tried to file a complaint. Said I had no right to sell the house. He was told politely that he had never been on the deed. That all utilities had been in my name. That all mortgage payments came from my account. Linda didn't challenge it. Because she knew. She always knew. She just never thought I'd act on it. People like her build their lives on the assumption that men like me won't walk away. That our loyalty is bottomless. That we'll stay out of duty, out of fear, out of love. But even oceans dry up. Even saints close their hands. And when they do, the begging begins. Too late. Always too late. I've started writing again. Not letters, not lists, stories. Stories about men like me, stepdads, providers, ghosts. I give them names, but they're all me. And in every story, the same truth unfolds. A man gives everything, and when he asks for a single thank you, he's told it was never his to give. So he takes it back. Not the money, the presents, the weight, the protection. And when the house collapses, they ask why he didn't warn them. But he did. With every dinner cooked, with every late bill paid, with every chair repaired, every loan approved, every tire changed in the rain. He was always warning them. They just weren't listening. Until the silence came. And now I ask you, you who reads this, hears this, imagines yourself in my place. Was I wrong? Was I cruel? Was I heartless to finally value myself, after decades of being valued only for what I could give? Or was this the only path left to a man who'd been turned into a bank, a handyman, a witness? You tell me, what would you have done sitting at that table? What would you have done when your wife nodded as her sons made arrangements for your removal? Would you have fought, begged, explained yourself? Or would you have done what I did, left, and in leaving finally been seen? They erased me from the family, so I erased the family from my life. And for the first time in years I am whole.